Anderson Cooper gets canceled for misgendering a woman. Oh, there I go. I did it too. Well, we'll show you what happened there in this crazy town hall with Bernie Sanders. Also, Tim Walz very sad today because Tesla stock is very up today, but he's still demonizing an American citizen, an American entrepreneur, and a publicly traded American company. What the hell is wrong with him? Sunny Hostin just can't shake her ancestors who were slave owners. She is so racist when it comes to voter ID, and she's proud of it. We're going to show you that. Plus, I mean, I feel like you come here to see the best of Scott Jennings. So we've got the best of Scott Jennings from last night. It's good stuff, and you're going to love it. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. And let's get right into it, except first, thank you for watching, of course. Thank you for subscribing. Hey, give us some thumbs up here and like our video early on. The earlier you give us the likes, and you know you like what you see, the quicker we start getting thrown out there on the main page of whatever platform you're watching right now, and that builds our audience, and that builds more people that you can bond with in our live chat room. If you're watching us after the fact, join our chat. We go live at noon Eastern every day, and let's face it, we have a lot of fun here. You should join the conversation and be a part of the fun chat room right down below. So give us the likes right now. Even give us a love if you can, and we'll spread it around. All right, let's get right to it. Last night on CNN, they're doing one of these town halls. Anderson Cooper is the moderator. It's Senator Bernie Sanders. He's there to scream about Trump and Musk and all that stuff. But then the unthinkable happened. I got to give you a trigger warning. What you're about to see is so disturbing, so outrageous. It's offensive, at least. And, well, let's just go right to it.
Paul, we're back with Senator Bernie Sanders. I want to introduce Grace Thomas. She's a local civil rights attorney. She's a Democrat. Grace?
They them pronouns, actually. Thank you.
Oh.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party. But of course...
Wait a minute. What does she mean, men? We'll get to that in a minute. But did you catch that? Did I just say she? I'm sorry, they, them. Anderson Cooper identified this individual who, I'll be honest with you, I mean, I have absolutely no idea if that is a man or a woman or a they or a them or I don't know why Anderson Cooper would be so presumptuous to identify this human being with the name Grace as she. What kind of bigoted, misogynist, hateful homophobe is Anderson Cooper? How presumptuous to leap to that conclusion that that individual right there would go by she. And what's going on with the producers there, the people who are supposed to be screening, because it's a town hall. And of course, in every town hall, everybody's pre-screened and approved and questions are scripted. That's why they have cards in front of them to read them, because that makes it for a natural town hall. Why didn't the producer put this on the card for Anderson Cooper, that this is clearly a they, them, just in case Anderson's having trouble with the glasses, not quite obviously recognizing the fact that what we see in front of us here, named Grace, is clearly a they, them. Outrageous. But then it is kind of weird that they, them's question is about men.
Polling and turnout data indicate that men of all racial demographics are turning away from the Democratic Party.
Right. Men. I mean, that's kind of presumptuous too. I mean, I hate to go into the spiral of doom down the toilet bowl of pronouns and inclusiveness and diversity and inclusion. But I mean, who the hell is she to call anybody in this country a man? By the way, why did she refer to Bernie Sanders as senator? That's presumptuous. She should have stuck with senatrix. Did you catch, by the way, Bernie Sanders' initial reaction to the whole pronoun correction thing? And it's so gratuitous. It's so narcissistic. Anderson Cooper puts her on television, and I understand it's only a handful of people watching at CNN, but still, this is the big moment for they, them on CNN. Anderson Cooper says she has a question about this, and they, them can't just roll with it. They, them can't just shrug it off. They, them can't say, ugh, wish you would have said they, them, because I'm they, them. But no, has to draw the line, has to make a federal case out of it. They, them has to stop before anything else proceeds and say, it's they, them, actually. Get it right, Manderson. Or is it they, themderson? Damn it. But did you notice the initial reaction from Bernie Sanders when the camera caught him? They, them gets up there, gets really upset, wants to make sure everybody knows what the proper pronouns are. They cut to Bernie. Yeah, even he is tired of this shit. Even he's like, oh, God, it's so insufferable, for God's sake. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool communist. I actually honeymooned in the Soviet Union before it was cool. And I'm tired of this. It's so just, God, laborious, ponderous, man. It's ponderous. So even Bertie's like done with this crap. So listen, we made it through. I want to apologize on behalf of this program, everyone involved with it, and certainly Town Hall Media. We certainly would never breach somebody's pronoun narcissism by presuming that they, them are a she. That's an Anderson Cooper thing. That's a CNN thing. They suck. We recognize this person's right and inherent justice in referring to themselves as a they, them, and God bless you, they, them. You keep doing what you're doing. We're excited to visit back to they, them 30, 40, 50 years from now, touching base with they, them, and seeing how happy and wonderful they, them life is. Living alone in a one-bedroom apartment in a major metropolitan city, surrounded by they, them's cats, with no love in they, them's life, no one to share they, them's future with, or old age, getting on mass transit because they, them knows that those cars are going to ruin the planet, heading to the public library to look at porn. They, them has a bright, Democrat-fueled, dystopian, big city in America future ahead of they, them. And we wish they, them luck. Meanwhile, there was more going on at this town hall that's a little objectionable, I'd say. Here's Senatrix Bernie Sanders laying into Donald Trump.
Trump, I'm going to get to the law firms in a moment. Trump, in his movement toward authoritarianism is attacking, he's sued ABC, sued Meta, suing CBS. He is now investigating PBS and NPR. He has called this station illegal, correct?
I'm not sure about the illegal part, but I
this and MSNBC, illegal. You're now, by the way, in Trump's world, you are in an illegal network. What is all of that about? Trump, I'm going to get to the...
What is that all about? What is that all about? Let's break this down for a moment. First of all, it's not authoritarian for an individual to sue for defamation. Now, if he were using the power of the presidency and it was actually the government suing a media outlet, well, I mean, it depends on the merits of the case. You know, when Barack Obama was president of the United States, they actually wiretapped reporters that they didn't agree with, like Catherine Herridge and James Rosen and other journalists in town who dared to ask questions about, you know, surveillance and Benghazi and Fast and Furious. But, you know, I bore you with history and facts. Bernie Sanders didn't seem to have a problem with that. But here's the thing. I don't think it's authoritarian when an individual citizen like Donald Trump, he is still a citizen of the country and has the right to sue people who defame him, actually sue these organizations for, well, lying about them, which is exactly what he did. In fact, he won a settlement with these networks, with ABC News. ABC News was sued. George Stephanopoulos was sued because, well, they lied about Donald Trump. This was before the election, by the way. And they won a $16 million settlement. Why is that authoritarian? I love that Bernie Sanders is more concerned about an individual suing a network who has used their power and their monopoly to lie about a person running for presidency. That's kind of disconcerting. That's kind of an abuse of the First Amendment and abuse of a corporation, Disney in this case, utilizing their giant megaphone to lie to the American people right before an election. And they knew they were wrong because they settled. These other networks are also looking to settle with Donald Trump. Many of the law firms that he just referred to have settled with Donald Trump because you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to settle when you know you've done something wrong and somebody is suing you. That's not authoritarianism. Now, to NPR and PBS, he's investigating NPR and PBS. Well, that's actually oversight, pal. Those are government institutions. We fund them. They work for us. My question to Bernie Sanders is, why hasn't he been interested in investigating these latrines that take our money and flush it down the toilet under the guise of entertainment and journalism? Can you believe he's investigating? No, I can't believe nobody has investigated how they've misused our money. And if you don't like that, by the way, I've got an idea. Divest the federal government and our tax dollars from those institutions. Let them live on their own, just like the rest of us. And then finally calling CNN illegal. Well, what he did was he said that the activities that CNN engages in, the one-sided propaganda that ends up being tantamount to a gift in kind for the Democrats, and in the case of the presidential election for Kamala Harris, that is tantamount to an illegal campaign contribution, and it should be seen as just that. I'm glad that Bernie Sanders asked the rhetorical question, what is that all about? Because then I explained what it's all about. I doubt the Senatrix is listening, but that's fine. It's a good opportunity for us to be educated, isn't it? Moving on, he then targeted DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, a department who's looking to root out waste, fraud, abuse, the stuff that apparently Bernie Sanders is all in favor of. See, he's leading the effort on behalf of the Democrats for DAGE. That would be Democrats against government efficiency. So go ahead, Bernie. Attack a private citizen, the most successful entrepreneur of our lifetimes, person who single-handedly rescued the electric car industry and revitalized it and remade it around the world and revitalized aerospace and space exploration. He announced today that he's planning on sending robots to Mars. Yeah, he's the kind of guy who's employing tens of thousands of Americans in American-made cars. He's the kind of guy that you should attack and demonize. Go ahead, Bernie. Go.
I want everybody to think about this. Most people, we have millions of federal employees. Most people are not federal employees. And I think many people are saying, wow, that's outrageous. I really feel for these federal employees thrown out on the street. But I want you to think about this. If Musk can do this to federal employees, some of whom are in unions, some of whom work for years, what do you think he's going to be doing when artificial intelligence and robotics comes for your job? Guess what? The job you have today ain't going to be here in 10 or 15 years. And you think Musk and his friends are saying, oh, my goodness, how do we protect American workers from the explosion in technology that we're seeing? They don't give a damn about you. If this is what they could do to federal employees, think about what they could do to people in the private sector.
Did you follow any of that? The real danger here is companies making their business model more efficient and then firing employees, which is actually something that's gone on since the dawn of time. That's why we got to get rid of the cotton gin. That's why we got to get rid of assembly lines. Robotics. I remember when I lived in Detroit and there was the advent of robotics on the assembly line for automobiles. It's like, this is terrible. It's going to replace human beings. And it did. It made assembly lines more efficient, but it also added jobs for people. And it actually allowed those car companies to crank out more cars that were made with higher quality. This is so typical of people like Bernie Sanders. What's the word I'm looking for? Communists. That's the word. Communists. It's the great story that my brother had when he was in China, and he saw that they were digging a ditch, and they had 1,000 people out there all with shovels. And he said, my brother worked for GE Fanuc at the time, which works in automation. And he said, you could get some, power equipment to make this go a lot more efficiently, and you wouldn't have to have 1,000 people out here just manually digging a trench with shovels. It is the 21st century, and the representative of the Chinese government said, oh, well, this isn't just a project for digging a trench. This is also a jobs program. Because, they're communists. They have to employ people. Otherwise, people will starve because, well, you don't have a job unless you're working for the government. So we need to dig a trench. Good. 1,000 people get to get stale bread this week in the bread lines. My brother sort of thought to himself, well, you could hire 10,000 people by just giving them spoons instead of shovels. You'd still get your ditch dug. This is how communists think. Communists like Bernie Sanders. And so he's worried about AI replacing employees, and he's fear-mongering here, saying, look what he's doing to these federal employees. The next thing you're going to know, when we force McDonald's to pay everyone behind the counter a minimum wage of $20 an hour, that they might end up replacing those people with touchscreens in the lobby of the McDonald's so people can just order their Big Mac themselves. Oh, wait, that's exactly what happened. As soon as communists like Bernie Sanders demanded that McDonald's pay $20 an hour for the cashiers. It's funny how businesses in a free market society end up getting around these laws that these commies set up, make your life just as good and efficient. In fact, frankly, it's a lot easier to order a Big Mac right now when I'm not dealing with the person who can barely speak or understand English on the other side of the counter. So how'd that work out for you, Bernie? Please tell me how you're going to protect all of these jobs from robotics and artificial intelligence and how that's better for our country. Go ahead. I'll wait. He wasn't done. Bernie Sanders had much more to say at this town hall. And it's good because, let's face it, as we've often said for the last several weeks, ever since really the Trump administration began, the Democrats don't really have anybody leading them. So it might as well be Bernie. So this is who they are. This is what they stand for.
No, I want to, sometimes these issues about healthcare, about income and wealth inequality are not talked about in the corporate media. And it's time that we did talk about them. That's why the question a moment ago, why are people losing faith in the American system? We don't talk about it on CNN. We don't talk about it in Congress. It's because they understand that a handful of billionaires exert enormous influence. And that has got to change. So when I'm running around the country with Alexandria and other people, what we are trying to do is demand that working class people begin to stand up and fight for their rights. There is no reason we should be the only major country not to have health care, not to have paid family and medical leave, et cetera, why we have the highest rate of childhood poverty, almost any major country. 22% of our seniors living on $15,000 a year. Anybody here think that makes sense? No. All right, it doesn't.
Nobody answered. Well, I'll answer it for you. It doesn't. You had one guy who's the comms director for Senatrix Sanders there saying, oh, it doesn't make sense. But here's why it falls on deaf ears. Two reasons. The first reason is I could show you Senator Ted Kennedy, 1976, saying exactly the same thing. Their message has never changed. And the American people have rejected it over and over and over again. I love how, well, we need to have health care. I thought Obama fixed that. I thought Obamacare fixed that. Remember how that was going to, no. It's never fixed. By the way, you go to England where they have their healthcare system. You go to Canada where they have their healthcare system. They're not so happy. They're not so, but it doesn't matter. This is what they do. This is what they talk about. This is the same message they've had forever since Bernie Sanders was, 50 years younger. And he still looked like this. The other reason why this falls on deaf ears is that he premised the whole thing with it's time for the working class of America to stand up and demand the rights. And it's like, yeah, that's what they did. They voted for Trump. And he's actually, you know what the working class in America, I hate using that term because it's a socialist term. But I'll accept the premise for a second. Do you know what the working class people in America want? They want to work, and they want to save their money, and they want to take care of their kids, and they don't want to be obsessed with politics because they got other things to focus on. They want to focus on scriptures and the Bible and their faith and raising their kids and spending time with their family and watching sports. They don't want to be obsessed with politics like people in that room are. So they voted for Trump because the other party doesn't actually represent the working class in America. That's clear. It's obvious because we're in the same news cycle this week where his party, and he in particular, stood up for investment bankers, Wall Street, and big governments who were angry at us for protecting manufacturing jobs with tariffs. Please tell me who's looking out for the working class people of America, Bernie. Please. We'll let him finish because the best part here is that Bernie is only happy when he's screaming at people. And so he decides to start screaming at Anderson Cooper, which I'm all for, by the way. That homophobic bigot who misgenders people, he should be screamed at.
But you got to get CNN to talk about these issues. You got to get your members of Congress to talk about these issues.
We're literally talking about it right now.
Yeah, but I'm forcing you to talk about it, Anderson.
This is Joel. We invited you. This is Joel Pritikin. He's a student at American University, originally from Venice, California. He's president of the College Republicans. Joel.
Sure he is. The College Republicans at American University from Venice, California. All right. Well, we don't have time for him. We wanted to just see Bernie Sanders yell at Anderson Cooper, publicly shame him for not talking about these issues enough and for misgendering the they-thems. It was a great night on CNN. I know you don't watch. I'm glad we were able to present it to you. Really, you don't need to keep watching. We'll show you everything you need to see from CNN. Anderson Cooper, shame on you. Hey, buy our swag. Got the mug back. It's all fresh and clean. Look at how pretty it is. I don't have a beverage in it today because I already drank my coffee for the day. I'm pretty flying right now. Anyway, get your Larry mug. You can get it at store.townhallmedia.com, store.townhallmedia.com. We got Larry mugs. We got Larry polo shirts. We got Larry t-shirts, lots of different colors. You can see a picture of Kevin McMahon, our producer, modeling those shirts, by the way, really fabulous. But there's also a bunch of other swag, Golden Age t-shirts, MAGA hats, but with a certain flair. You'll love it, and you'll be supporting everything that we do here at Larry and at Town Hall Media. So it's store.townhallmedia.com, and my favorite is the mug. It really is good. And we're going to get you some Jeb mugs. That's actually in the works now. The Jeb mug is coming because that is a vibe, that is a mood, and I know you all want Jeb on your mug. So we'll get those coming your way as well. Go to store.townhallmedia.com. If Bernie Sanders isn't the leader of the Democratic Party, the only other option is Tim Walz. Yeah, he's the governor of Minnesota, and he's been flying high lately. He's undermining Kamala Harris. He's making his move for the the Democrat nomination for president in 2028. And, well, he had a banner night last night going after not Trump, not Republicans, Elon Musk. Boy, that they have focus grouped this. They've market tested it, and they are bound and determined to attack Elon Musk. So take it away, Timmy.
I think Democrats supporting families, supporting the working class, supporting unions, but I think we have to separate and have a message here. It's okay in America to be successful. We should celebrate that when people are successful. What my beef is, once you get successful, don't be a greedy bastard and not pay your taxes. Don't do that. Pay your tax and do that. And let those young men who see this, now I would argue this, we're creating a false narrative from them that everybody is super rich and has Lamborghinis and life is easy. But that's what we're going to have to figure out in our society about social media and all those things. But I don't think we should be the party that demonizes someone because they're able to afford something or they're able to work hard and got something. What we should demonize is people like Elon Musk and those people that do that. And that's different.
It's different. He's not one of our billionaires. You realize that billionaires supported the Harris-Walz ticket by a factor of 2 to 1 in the last election, right? We shouldn't demonize for people for making money. After all, my best buddy is George Soros and his son Alex. No. We just need to demonize the right kind of billionaires, the ones who, speak out against us, the ones that don't have us in their back pockets. It's okay to demonize them, right? Did you also hear him flirting with the idea of censoring messages on social media? We got to figure out what we're going to do about social media because, young men out there are getting the wrong message. Who's to say what the wrong message is? Clearly, Tim Walz and his overlords in the government decide what the right or wrong message is. So that was a telling little clip there, too. Also, again, with the presumption, who's Tim Walz to say what a man is, or who a man is for that matter? You hear him just tossing that term around, men. Define man, Tim. You're better than anyone to be able to answer that question. So he wants to demonize Elon Musk. He specifically said we should demonize Elon Musk. Let's all demonize Elon Musk. Elon?
I'm the largest individual taxpayer in history. So I paid $10 billion in tax, over $10 billion in tax. You're welcome. Like I sort of thought maybe the IRS would send me like a little trophy or something. Yeah, like one of those doesn't have to be expensive. It could be like one of those like things you get for when kids win a karate competition, like little plastic gold trophy or something like that, or a cookie or something. But I didn't get anything. It's like and. But I was happy to pay the taxes. I don't mind,
Demonize Elon Musk because he's one of the, how did Tim Walz put it, greedy bastards who makes his money and then wants to keep it. Oh, well, the way Tim Walz said it was pay your damn taxes, right? Because see, if you object to paying taxes, what you're really saying is, I would like to keep the money that I made and not have to give more than half of it to the state and federal government. That makes you a greedy bastard, you greedy bastard. Wait, next thing you're going to start thinking is that's your money. Come on. So it's okay to demonize Elon Musk because he's a greedy bastard, because he doesn't want to pay his taxes, and he literally is the historically highest taxpayer in our nation's history. And there's Tim Walz, who has never accomplished or created or done anything with his life that anyone could call an entrepreneurial success. Again, I'm not demonizing teachers. I'm not demonizing people. Obviously, I love people in the military, but I'm saying that his entire life experience is being in the military reserves and overstating his military record to boost himself up. And the second his he got called up to actually serve in combat, he decided to retire at the last second, and he left his company hanging out there. That's exactly what his fellow soldiers in his company said. And he's been a public school teacher activist who every year has gone to Beijing, China, to celebrate the communists. And then he says that someone like Elon Musk, who has taken risks, who has made money, he has employed tens of thousands. Actually, at this point, he's employed over hundreds of thousands of people in his career. He's a greedy bastard. That's the Tim Walz Democrat perspective on this country. Now, I told you that he had a banner night yesterday. Yeah, he had another event at the Minnesota State Capitol, because remember, he's actually the governor of Minnesota. His job is not to go on these tours and do jazz hands on stage and demonize private entrepreneurs. No, he's actually supposed to be the governor of Minnesota. And so he was doing an event where they were talking about the American Legion, it appears, and some military veterans in the audience took issue with his stolen valor history, and they let him hear it. Not a good look for the governor.
Welcome to the Capitol. It's great that you're Sir, you're welcome to come. Let me finish. Let me finish. Oh, hey, there's some passion in the bill.
Yeah, that didn't go well for Tim. See, that's the problem. He can't shake his past. He can't shake his history. And he can't shake the fact that, in the words of his son, he got his ass kicked by Donald Trump. But he's their golden child. He's the guy they seem to be getting excited about there on the campaign trail. Either that, or he's just filling the vacuum right now because other Democrats just don't want to have anything to do with the brand. They don't want to go out there and do much on behalf of the party. And Tim's like, I'll go. Send me out there. I love this. And the people love me. Okay. Oh, we love Tim, but for very different reasons. And in fact, we love Tim's appearances when they're caught on video so we can show them to you when they happen, but then also go back to them weeks later and remind you what Tim Walz said. Like this gem right here when he was doing a little stand-up routine in front of a crowd of rabid communists there calling themselves Democrats. And he was demonizing Elon Musk, as he seems to do every single time. Take a look at this. Remember?
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So
Yeah, that was when he was rooting against an American company that makes American automobiles in America. In fact, if you look at automobiles made in America right now from the major manufacturers, and you break down the percentage of their cars that are actually sourced and made in America, including the parts and components, there is literally no other car in America, made in America, that is as American as Tesla. And they employ, I believe Tesla employs over 80,000 people. And by the way, if you care about carbon emissions, which I don't, but if you do, if you're one of those people, I would think you'd like Tesla because, you know, it's an electric powered vehicle. Last I checked, these guys were big champions of electric vehicles. But see, Elon Musk votes the wrong way, so he must be destroyed, and his company must be destroyed. So there he was just a few weeks ago celebrating the Tesla stock because it was, having a few rough days there because lunatic domestic terrorists were actually firebombing Tesla dealerships and Tesla cars themselves. The problem is if you literally have that app on your phone to give yourself a good mood every day, if you're feeling down and you check that stock and as Tim Walz just said, it gives you a little boost when you see it having a rough day. Let me tell you something. Yesterday was really, really rough for Tim Walz. Tesla actually was the single best performing stock on the planet yesterday after President Trump made his announcement pausing the tariffs for every country except for China, ramping them down to 10% for 90 days, and then going mano a mano with China because the entire tariff policy was always about China, just like we've been telling you for the last 10 days, while the rest of the media and Democrats like Tim Walz and Chuck Schumer were all screaming their heads off and demanding that Trump stop the tariffs, which he technically did yesterday, but then they were angry about that too. While they were all saying that the sky was falling and the economy was doomed, right here every single day, we were telling you, don't get distracted by that. This entire policy is about China. It's about isolating China. In fact, we said it yesterday on the program before Trump made his announcement, if you were watching, that this entire end game is about China. But because of the provisions within the World Trade Organization, Trump couldn't just go after China. He had to declare a trade emergency, which meant every country got tariffs that we initiated. And then all those countries started negotiating directly with us. That's when Trump made his announcement in the afternoon yesterday and said, this is about China. Where did you hear that before? You heard it on this show. It was always about China. And here we are. We're finally having the confrontation that's been delayed and ignored and denied for decades by your leaders. Donald Trump is literally doing exactly what he said he would do when he ran for president. He's utilizing tariffs to fix the cheating and fix the imbalance that China has been exploiting. And we are now in the driver's seat, and everybody who panicked for the last 10 days because they were watching cable news or, well, some less reputable podcasts, well, now they've learned a very valuable lesson. You should just listen to Larry. You should also support the work we do at Town Hall Media. And the best way to do that is to become a member of our VIP program. Go to townhallvip.com. You'll get all of our content on our websites with an ad-free experience. And that's a beautiful thing. That's Town Hall, that's Hot Air, that's PJ Media, that's Red State, that's Twitchy, and that's Bearing Arms. This show is produced and presented by Town Hall. We've got this plus a bunch of other exclusive podcasts just for our VIP members and exclusive video content as well. Go over to townhallvip.com. And when you check out, use my name. Use Larry, Larry, at checkout, and you'll get 50% off. And most importantly, you'll support the work that we're doing on all of our sites and this show in particular. Thank you for that. Sunny Hostin, who's one of the ladies around the table at The View, she was on a podcast and she was asked about voter ID laws and why there's controversy here. Why is it a problem for a state to ask for a voter to show and prove that they are who they say they are before they can vote? Seems like a pretty safe and secure way to go about it. In fact, you'll remember earlier in the week, we had quite a passionate discussion here on the show because we were highlighting something that a guest of theirs said, the black guy with the white Q-tip afro, Elie Mystal. He said that we should get rid of all voter registration and all photo ID laws. Just let people show up and vote. That's what he thinks we should do. So what does Sunny Hostin think about that? Well, I'll let her talk and then you decide, because when I heard it, it sounded kind of racist.
Don't have cars, don't have driver's licenses. So it's sort of a vestige of, I think, post-slavery laws where Black people had to prove their right to vote. And oftentimes they couldn't vote because they couldn't pass some crazy test or they didn't have the appropriate ID. It also affects women that are married. Maybe your passport reflects something that's different on your birth certificate or on your driver's license. So really the bottom line is voter suppression. And I agree with him 100%. It's a brilliant notion that less voter ID laws allows more people to vote. And most democracies do it that way. We're the only ones that really don't do it that way.
Right. Actually, she's wrong about that. Most countries who utilize the democratic process to choose their leaders like we are, whether they're a democracy or not, do have photo ID laws. That said, if I were interviewing Sunny Hostin on this podcast, I wouldn't do what that guy did and say, right. I would lean forward and say, well, let me get this straight. You just told me that people of color with African-American descent, which you are, right? And women, you just said, which you are, right? Don't want to presume. You said that people of African-American descent and women are more challenged and find it more difficult to get a photo ID. And historically, they haven't been able to do it. Do you have a photo ID, Sunny Hostin? And if so, why are you so much better than the rest of them? Why are you so superior? What makes you so good that you figured it out? Because based on what you're telling me, if you're Black and you're a woman, you're having issues. You're not quite capable yet of getting that photo ID. Are you that much better than them? I'd love to hear her answer to that. The problem here, of course, is that I can't just come out and tell you about Black people's ability to get a photo ID. I'm not qualified. I'm not allowed to, because, you know, if I did, they'd call me names. This guy, on the other hand, I'm going to sit back and let him talk about it. His name is Wesley Hunt. He's a congressman from Texas, and he feels very strongly about the whole Black people historically can't get photo IDs thing. Congressman Hunt, what do you think about that?
Now, I'm sitting here right now, and I got to tell y'all, I'm Black. and I'm a veteran. I have 6 forms of government ID. 6. I've been Black for my whole life. I've been a veteran since 2000 when I was at West Point. The insinuation that Black and brown people cannot get an ID to vote like every other citizen, regardless of your race, religion, color, or creed, is insulting. I actually refer to this as the soft bigotry of low expectations. We, as all Americans, should want free and fair elections. We aren't making it more difficult for people to get an ID to vote. I have an 18-month-old little boy. Do you know the first thing that he got when he was born that I had to sign for? A birth certificate.
Yeah, that says it all. See, I didn't need to say a damn thing. You got Wesley Hunt delivering the message, and I think he does it in an even better way than I could. By the way, this whole canard about photo ID and voter suppression, as you heard from Sonny Hostin. Again, earlier in the week, we talked about this, and I made a pretty passionate case that it's amazing how these bigots who say they care about African-American people not getting a photo ID only leave the conversation at that. You know, having a conversation with somebody, say, I think you should get a photo ID to vote. And they say, oh, well, that's bigoted because Black people can't get a photo ID. And then they just walk away from the conversation. See, I'm still standing here in the middle of the conversation because I'd like to say, hold on a minute. There are people in this country who don't have a photo ID. Why are you walking away from that? Why have you made your slam dunk, you're a racist for trying to suppress Black votes argument, and then you just leave? That's not a mic drop moment. You've just introduced an idea that for some reason Black people don't have photo IDs in this country. And that's not just a weapon you can use to demonize your opponents who are trying to actually make our elections more safe and full of integrity. See, to me, when you raise that issue, you're now opening up a whole new conversation. I'm still standing here having the conversation where I want people in this country to be able to cash a check, open a bank account, get on an airplane, get an education, do anything that you need a photo ID. All you care about is making sure that you can use that talking point as a weapon and call me racist. Well, let's look at the facts. The most famous voter ID law that was demonized and challenged in this country over the past 4 years was passed by Republicans in the state of Georgia. Major League Baseball boycotted the state and pulled the All-Star game from Atlanta because it was so racist. American Airlines, Coca-Cola, all these big corporate entities pulled their presence from Georgia because they were so humiliated that Georgia would be so bigoted and so racist. Joe Biden demonized it and said it was Jim Crow on steroids. Remember? Talked about it all the time, that this was all an intention to suppress the Black vote. Since that law was passed in Georgia, they've had 2 major elections, the 2022 midterms and the 2024 presidential election. Contrary to what you heard from Joe Biden and Major League Baseball and from Democrats and racists like Sonny Hostin, the vote was not suppressed in those 2 elections. In fact, quite the opposite occurred. Voter turnout broke records significantly in the African-American community. It's almost like Black people are not only capable of getting photo IDs, but they in fact do have photo IDs and they use them to vote. And it's not suppressing them and it's not keeping them from voting. It's keeping their elections rock solid, which is really what we want here. But I don't want the facts to get in the way of a good talking point that's utilized and wielded by our media and by our elites and the Democrat Party to call those of us who want election integrity racist because, you know, God forbid we get in the way of that. It is strange, though, that Sonny Hostin is now the messenger for this. It's kind of odd that Sonny Hostin suddenly is out there saying that Black people are incapable of getting photo IDs. I mean, if I were Sonny Hostin, I wouldn't want to deliver that message because it sounds racist. It sounds like you think that Black people in some way are an inferior race. And I'm sure she doesn't really mean that. Why would she deliver a message that suggests that Black people are in some way inferior or incapable of doing something so basic as to get a photo ID. What do we know about Sunny Hostin's past that could maybe shed some light on this very strange thing she said?
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living.
Yeah. I mean, she's the progeny of slave owners. So I guess if you believe in the whole genetics thing and people being inherently sort of inclined in one way or another, I mean, she's clearly making the case that based on your DNA, your genetics, your chromosomal makeup, your melanin in your skin, that you're inherently inferior and incapable of doing something basic and self-sufficient and independent, like getting a photo ID. Well, if you inherently have slave owners as part of your DNA and your makeup, now it all makes sense. So we should cut her some slack. She can't help it. Her ancestors were slavers. And it makes sense now that she's a Democrat too, because let's face it, that's the party of slavery. I mean, they were all over that slavery thing. Oh, I know. They said it was for states' rights, right? When Jefferson and Madison created they called themselves the Democratic Republicans back then. It was during the Washington administration when they formed that political party. States' rights. And those Democrats who formed the Confederacy and waged war against the United States of America so that they could maintain their states' rights. States' rights to do what exactly? Your right to have your own income tax system, your right to have your own sales tax, your right to do, it was the state's right to do one specific thing, I think, was the overriding issue there. And that's why Sunny Hostin, progeny of slave owners, is still a Democrat. That's the legacy of that party. And that's why they continue to maintain that in some way they believe it. I don't. That Black people are incapable of getting a photo ID. It all makes sense when you think of it in those terms. I'm glad we could clear it up. Buy my book. All right, let's get on to our last segment. Was that a good plug for my book?
Nice and quick.
Yeah. Time now to see what Scott Jennings was up to last night, and I'm pretty sure it was damn good because, well, he's Scott Jennings. It got kind of fiery, actually. I think people are coming on that show knowing that he's the big dog, he's the alpha, it's his show, and so they want to go viral. They want people to see them on television. Look at me, I'm on TV. And so they decided the best way to do that is to pick a fight with Scott Jennings. Let's see how that works out for him.
You cannot just go and say, I like it. It's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it. I want to take it for mine. That is a very colonized.
You have said I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate. Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
What you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal insults.
I don't. You
personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage. So if you want to engage in personal insults, if I were you, I would reserve that for your party who is increasingly isolated. This will our position.
All right, so let me just break this down for you because there was a lot of overlapping talk there. She called Scott Jennings irrelevant. and his opinion irrelevant. Scott Jennings says, well, listen, I mean, I understand you got fired from your last job, but that doesn't mean you have to personally explain. Then she got all indignant because she thinks Scott Jennings insulted her personally by pointing out the fact that she got fired, even though she had just actually personally insulted him by claiming that he's irrelevant. Which, by the way, I love that you're sitting on the same panel show on CNN together, and you're telling your colleague there that they're irrelevant. Well, if I'm irrelevant and I'm sitting next to you on the same show, what does that make you exactly? And by the way, what's your name? Because I'm Scott frickin' Jennings. But the whole idea that she said, hey, we can't just go around the world and tell other countries that we want to negotiate a deal that's in our best interest. That's like colonialism. We can't do that. It's like, what world are you living in? Because I guarantee you that is literally exactly what every country on the planet does when they engage with their partners and adversaries. But I know as a Democrat, she's not used to that because her leadership actually would rather not. They would rather defer to other countries. They think that America has no right being its own country. They think that we are a blight on the planet. They think that the world would have been better off if the United States were never created. Don't believe me? Go talk to some of them, the ones in leadership or the ones that teach history classes at your local liberal arts college. More Scott Jennings. He was having a good night last night. She really asked for it.
You want to engage in personal insults?
I don't, but you
what
do.
You lack in a legitimate point, you make up for it in personal
I don't. You
personal insults. The point I am making is in this.
Hold on. I want to start this from the beginning because I just wanted. We give a lot of praise to Scott Jennings for coming up with great moments on the fly. He obviously always sticks to the facts. He always delivers the perfect one-liners. He's very glib. He gives us great expressions back to the camera, all that stuff. But could we just pause for a moment and enjoy and relish and praise him for his patience? Because I want you to put yourself in his chair for a minute and imagine you have to endure what he's going to endure over the course of the next 20 seconds. And he honestly must be the most patient man on the planet. Let's watch.
You want to engage in personal insults?
I don't, but you
what
do.
You lack in a legitimate point, you make up for it in personal
I don't. You do.
personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you
That's just, I mean, again, the fact that he could just sit there calmly, breathing. I wonder what his pulse rate is. Is he a marathon runner or something? This is an incredible thing to behold. I couldn't do it. You know, a lot of times it was like, hey, Larry, you should go on these shows. No, they ask sometimes. They don't ask anymore because I've said no so many times. I'll do Newsmax now and again. And I'll be on Sean Spicer's show tomorrow because he's a friend and I like him. But other than that, I could not do that. I'm too used to being in this setting where I can speak my mind and I can spend as much time as I want delivering my message. And that doesn't work on cable news. I also like to lay out arguments and give facts in history. That you get like 45 seconds per hit, even on this show. Because look at it. You got Abby Phillips. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, 60-minute show, break out the commercials. That means you got about 43 minutes of content divided by those 6 individuals. And Abby Phillips gets to decide when you stop and start talking. Jennings has a skill set. He's great at it. There's no way I could survive. My head would explode. Honestly, it would be insane. All right, one last clip here. This time now, he gets to pivot from the maniac on his left and turns instead to the maniac across the table. Our favorite maniac, mi abuela, Ana Navarro.
He's mercurial. Honestly, if I was Kamala Harris behaving this way, they'd call her hormonal and hysterical, right? Look,
We'd have to get elected to be.
but well, yes, and if she had been elected, and if Hillary Clinton had been elected, if any woman had been elected and been acting this way, they'd say it was menopause.
She would have never stood up to China. So
Well,
I think this
that's
is a mood issue, right?
No, it's not.
Bad idea, Anna. She's trying to do this whole, sexism thing and misogyny thing. And if women acted this way, they'd say they're hysterical or menopausal or hormonal and everything. And Jennings is like, yeah, but you got to win first. You actually have to hold on to a policy like this first. You have to not, bend the knee to China to be accused of this. I know it's like she has no response to that. See, she's used to being on The View, where she says something like that, and all the screaming memes in the audience scream and applaud, and all the other brain-dead women around the table with her said, "That's right, girl, that's right." And instead, Scott Jennings like, "Oh, I'm sorry, would Kamala Harris do this? Because I've never seen her do anything close to this, because she hasn't won an election." And she has no response. She doesn't know what to say, because she's not actually used to engaging with somebody who disagrees with her, let alone actually even talking to them. Scott Jennings, we love you, man. I don't know how you continue to do this, seriously. And I don't know how you haven't just demanded to the CNN brass and said, enough of this. Can you just give me my show? I'll have these people on one-on-one and we'll engage, but let me pick the topics. Let me deliver the message. I'm the reason people are tuning in. It's obvious to anybody who watches. And the fact that CNN hasn't done that, the fact that CNN continues to have the primetime lineup they have, that is literally the last in the ratings in all of cable news and has been that way for going on a decade now. The fact that they actually have television gold with Scott Jennings and they haven't offered him his own show tells you that they don't care about ratings. They don't care about revenue. They don't care about good, smart television that you would actually enjoy watching, that actually gives voice to what you believe. They don't care about any of that. They do care about maintaining their political agenda, which is weird for a corporation to focus more on a political agenda, especially a corporation involved in, journalism and media and communications. You'd think that they'd be in a First Amendment stance where all voices are welcome and elevated and promoted equally, but they're not. They're not, which is fine with us, because that's what CNN has built, and that's what CNN is going down and sinking with. And while they go down, shows like this on this platform, we continue to soar. So don't change, CNN. Scott Jennings, if I were you, look into streaming. All right, that's it for today. But we have some super chats here that are insane. Georgina Gage, that is a crazy generous super chat. Larry, keep up the good work. Well, I mean, for that, I should keep up the great work. And I will. In fact, for that, on Monday, I'll be clean shaven. How about that? How about that, Georgina? That's what $100 gets you around here. I will shave my face. For 1,000, I might shave my head.
Whoa.
No, I won't. No, I won't. No, I won't. Georgina, that is very sweet and very generous. And the entire team here on the Larry Show and our entire video department at Town Hall, really thank you for that. That's huge. Thank you very much. God bless you. And then a $50 super chat from AK Storage Centers. I don't know. Is that in Alaska? AK is Alaska, right? I don't know if AK is Alaska or AK is the initials of the person who owns the storage centers. But if you guys are in the business for a storage center, if you need a storage center, if you're looking for a storage center, if you're in Alaska and you're thinking to yourself, I could really spend some money at a storage center, check out AK Storage Centers. They're our favorite storage center, AK Storage Centers. Thank you, AK. I appreciate that. $2 super chat from Angela. Thank you, Angela, or Angel. Question: DC Fossils, Smithsonian, or Glue Factory?
I got nothing on this one.
Are you following that? So Glue Factory is where horses go. Did we? Oh, sorry. I meant to clarify. Like Crazy Bernie or Up Chuck? Oh, you mean like where are they going to end up? These dinosaurs? Should they go to the glue? Should we send them out to the glue factory, which is where you send a tired old horse who can't do anything anymore? Or do you put them in the Smithsonian? I got you, Angela. I say Smithsonian because you got to learn from history so you don't repeat mistakes. So let's go with that. Speaking of that, I sort of went off on the Civil War, and I saw people in the chat, taking issue with my interpretation that the Civil War was really about slavery. Don't think I'm going out on a limb there. Guys, I'm a Yankee, okay? I'm from Michigan. I grew up learning that, fellow Michiganders went and wore the U.S. Army uniform and fought and died to free the slaves. I'm going to die on that hill. Sorry about that. It's all right. We don't have to agree on everything. Angela, for a $2 super chat, says, don't you have to show ID for a library card or a beer? Yes, that is correct. And that is why, by the way, I want to make sure that if there are people out there who don't have their IDs, they can get them, because every American deserves a beer, even if they choose Bud Light, which, I mean, who am I? Another $2 super chat from Angela. Angela, you're so generous to us. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, Kevin and Larry. Yeah, Kevin, what are you doing this weekend?
I'm actually going to a country concert tonight.
Really? You don't want to reveal who it is, because then people might find you and stalk you.
No, I have such niche country music taste anyway. You probably wouldn't have heard of them.
I wouldn't have if it's country music, actually. By the way, you are correct. I'm not a huge fan of country music. Did I mention I'm from Michigan? Casperius with a $5 super chat. Can we get you to shave your head if we get YouTube subs up to 1 million? All right. Two things. Let's talk timeline there, because I mean, eventually we'll get to 1 million, but that's going to be, in a while. So let's million by a drop dead date. Okay. Number one. Number two, define shave. Are we talking shave like cue ball shave, like all the way bald kind of shave? Or are we talking like real tight, like peach fuzz crew cut kind of thing? And here's why I asked. I've said this before. I don't hide anything. This is, in fact, a hair transplant. It's a much better job than Joe Biden got, right? But this is growyourhairback.com. Go to growyourhairback.com and you'll see the before and after pictures. And so I'm very precious with this. I value every follicle. And I'd be afraid that if I shaved my head, it just wouldn't grow back. It took a lot to get this. How little there is. It's thin, man. Larry with Larry O'Connor cue ball. Hey, Casperius didn't give us $5 for that one, Kevin. Well, let's see. All right, we'll set the terms. If we get 1 million by a certain date, I'll do something. But I don't know if I can shave my head, because then we'll start repelling the audience. Either way, thank you for watching today. We appreciate it. We're not scheduled for a Friday extravaganza this week, are we?
Not right now, no.
We are not. Oh no, actually we are definitely not. You know why? Let me just take this moment to tell you. I'm sitting in for Mark Levin tomorrow for the great one, the Mark Levin Show, heard coast to coast on syndicated talk radio, 6 to 9 Eastern, 3 to 6 on the West Coast. So I got to focus my energy and reserves and my show prep for the Mark Levin Show. So we will not have a show tomorrow, but I'll see you on the radio from 6 to 9 Eastern on the Mark Levin Show. And then we'll see you Monday. My name is Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.